Hello. Hello, hello, hello.
Can you hear me?
Hello, Pepper. Yes, we can hear you. How are you?
Nice. I'm doing great.
Good. Just waiting for Mad and David to come back. They're, they're technical gurus, so they're not having any difficulties at all.
If they were on my side of the world, then they would maybe be getting lunch.
Well, I'm in Brazil, so for me it's probably like an afternoon snack.
Yeah, I guess it is for me too, actually. I'm on the east, so it's 2:00.
Oh. Yeah, I lived in Boston a couple of years ago. I mean, actually a long time ago. And it was really weird talking to some of my relatives here in Brazil, because we were always 2 hours ahead, and I would always call them at a very inappropriate time.
Understandable.
Because it's easy to call somebody in an inappropriate time when the hour difference is not that much, as opposed to someone who is like 12 hours in front of you, because well, if it's noon now, it's probably night over there. So
Gotcha.
Is my microphone? Oh, finally!
Yeah, and I was getting a hard time from these two because I could not work my microphone.
I've been hi Pepper. I've been having so much issues recently with getting my microphone to work during the stage events. It's horrible.
Oh, I guess you figured it out, maybe.
I hope so. How you been, my man?
I have been good, busy as one could imagine, but good.
Oh, when was the last time we had you on? It's
December 12th.
That's basically like 7 years in crypto, right?
Yeah, that's 7 years in crypto, and
15 in DeFi, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
So,
but at least when you had me on back in December, like, while the project's still the same name, it might as well just be something totally different.
Yeah, that's what we discovered reading through your white paper. That a lot has changed, and I bet Matt Hatter's going to have a couple of good questions regarding that. I just made an announcement. So you guys want to start? Should we wait for a couple more people to join?
I'm happy to get started.
Okay, cool. So I see. Okay. Alrighty. Hello, everyone. Hello, Pepper. Thanks for coming back again to us. It's always a pleasure to have a returner on. As per usual, the intro is thanks for coming. We had the pillars where we ask the tough questions the community wants to know, but maybe too afraid to ask sometimes. All our questions are from the community and are asked with the intent to ensure we can protect investors as well as helping protocols grow and succeed. Today we have, as you can already see by the title of the event, we have the ranch on. It's, as already mentioned, it's the second time they have been here. Pepper has been here. And a lot has changed since the last time you were here. And before we get to that, I just want to announce as well that we have a giveaway, $100 giveaway at some point when Mad Hatter is announcing it. And yeah, invite all your friends to join and listen to this. And yeah, I hope everyone is having a great time. And I'm going to pass the microphone on to Mad Hatter. Thanks.
Thank you, David. Pepper, how are you? Other than busy, how's life?
It's good. I've, rode my mountain bike for the first time in a couple of weeks, so I'm a happy camper today.
Nice and relaxed at home.
Well, maybe not the kind of mountain biking I do, but yes.
Right. Okay. Well, at least you feel fulfilled, right? Which is the main thing.
Fulfilled, and I didn't break any bones, so it's a win.
Okay, that is a win indeed. Right, we're going to be talking about the ranch. As David mentioned a couple of times there, we've had you in before, and as you said, you guys have the same name, but may as well be entirely different. So I think what we should start with is perhaps just a little bit of a background on yourself, if you don't mind. How you came to find this weird and wonderful DeFi space, and what brought you to the decision that you were going to build out a product here.
Yeah, okay. So my name is Pepper, or, you can follow my LinkedIn. You'll figure out my name is Dustin. But I got into DeFi probably 2 years ago, and then got into a lot of projects and decided, hey, I'm going to be that wise guy to invest roughly $35,000 into the top of the bull market. Which, if you come into crypto and you've never been in there, you don't really understand how bad of an idea that is. But I've learned that lesson. In the process of doing so, I think I kept like a really detailed spreadsheet, just like I was going to do like videos on like how much money I made on several projects. Mm-hmm. Well, I think I got scammed on half of the projects I did. And that was kind of like the light bulb that went off that said, well, for one, a lot of the projects I did sucked, for lack of a better term. And basically the people did too. So, and I'm in tech. I'm a network engineer and system engineer as my day job. So when I started looking at the blockchain and how that works, and really just the technology under the hood, how, all that stuff, that's when I was like, man, I'm fascinated by this. So I wanted to run a project myself. But in doing so, be a lot more transparent than a lot of the other projects were.
Okay, so how did you come to think of the project you've currently got? And do you want to kind of talk us through a little bit about what that project is, what you believe the vision is for the project, and where you are in its evolution and life cycle at the moment?
Yeah, so at least where the current project is, I've dabbled in countless play-to-earn games, probably like a lot of you guys have. However, I have come to find out that play-to-earn games, they're not really sustainable, because ultimately if you don't have new money coming into it, well, then it just doesn't work. And then, so without doing a play-to-earn game system, the other idea, at least what I wanted to do when I first brought up the ranch, was I was going to sell NFTs, and we were going to buy as many Bitcoin miners at the bottom of the bear market, which wasn't a successful project because there just wasn't enough traction and marketing behind what I was doing back in December, which would have been a good place to buy, knowing that probably was the bottom of where Bitcoin was at the time. But also, it's turned out that even though Bitcoin was at a lower price at that point in time, it is much better. It's turned out to be a really good thing that I didn't start the project then, just in terms of like the relationships I've built since then, and ultimately the opportunities that I built since then, and really just the way the world has, maybe not the world, but certainly the United States has shown their cards on how you need to run a project if you're going to be in the United States, or give you the nod to go ahead and get on out of the United States. And that's where we're at. So that's the whole point of the project we're at now, where it's like, how do we create ultimately a project that can give rewards in a sustainable long-term way, but then also have a not a play to earn scheme on top of it, but like a play to basically a plain gamification layer on top of the rewards you would get from the underlying investment pool of the project.
Right. So talk us through that. I mean, before I start deep diving into the finer aspects of what you guys have got going on, talk us through the ranch. Somebody, everybody listening here is going to want to know, when I put my money in, where do I get my money out, and how do I earn money? You've mentioned the gamification, which is an extra layer on top. So just kind of give us that step by step in terms of what people can expect to see and get from you guys.
Yeah. So ultimately, at least where we're at in the project now is the ranch has NFTs. The NFTs are just bulls. There's 5,000 of them. They're in different, they're not all the same. So one bull does not necessarily equal another bull in the sense of we have this token on the project called a Boolean token. And ultimately, this works as kind of a share to the portfolio. So every NFT can earn amount of Boolean per month. So let's just say the normal bulls, they earn 18,000 Boolean tokens per month. And it's not like an actual ERC20 token. It's just something on the contract itself. So it's a number on the contract. But the way that works, just for a small example, at the end of the month, if you owned 1,000 Boolean tokens and then there were 10,000 Boolean tokens that were held by everyone that had a bull, well, then you would basically have 10% of the monthly reward pot coming back to you.
Right. So you've got these bulls. They each have their own different attributes. They're each going to give different returns based on how much they're worth. And those returns are in bullion. And then on top of that, there's a gamification version or aspect to it where you can battle it out against people or perhaps jump into a random lottery that gives you a win. And you can essentially earn yourself the right to boost your returns. Is that about right?
That is pretty much correct. However, you won't ever get the Boolean back. Again, That's just like a number on the contract to say you own 10% of the portfolio, and then that's how the function will disperse those rewards to you. And that can be in the form of, a stable coin, Bitcoin, wrapped Bitcoin, or whatever ERC20 token that's coming back to the project.
Okay, so what was the concept behind the bullion? The bullion, its only worth is the return percentage it gives you guys from the investments that you plan to do. Is that right?
Yeah, so it gives us a layer under the NFTs where each NFT can earn, it's essentially a point system. But ultimately, in terms of the gamification that we're adding on top of it, like if we just use NFTs, then at the end of the day, all you can wager is your NFT. And then if you wager your NFT, I mean, there's no, like, you're either going to transfer it to a new wallet or it's going to be transferred off your wallet and you're going to lose it. So the way the Boolean works is it's just a point system that you can wager a small sliver of your total points for the month, or you can wager the whole thing, depending on how much you want to do.
Right. And this might sound confusing for people that are listening and hearing this for the first time. Don't worry, we are going to deep dive into the finer aspects of this. All of this centers around you guys no longer buying miners, as you've said, but you're now going to be making investments into other projects that you believe are going to be sustainable enough to give you and your investors the returns that they want. Is that right?
Absolutely. And to jump on that a little bit more. So the reason I don't want to buy miners anymore is because I live in the United States. And then where I was going to host them in the United States and Texas in particular, it's like I'm a numbers guy. So I've crunched every single number and I've looked at the return we would get on that. And then when Alpha Shares launched their whole Bitcoin mining project and they were going to put that in Paraguay, that was kind of like the nail in the coffin for everything I was doing. However, I don't look at Alpha Shares as a competitor of anything I'm doing, because I've come to really like Alpha Shares. I really like the guys working on that project. So my intent was, well, if that's going to be a way more successful project in terms of the amount of rewards that come back from their Bitcoin mining than what I can do in the United States, then I just pivoted the whole Bitcoin mining aspect over to them. And so they're doing their whole reserve NFTs, which they've kind of moved away from the numbers, but ultimately it's about the best Bitcoin operation in my eyes in existence right now, because you get the Bitcoin mining and then they're bringing up this whole antimony refinement process that they're doing down in Paraguay. But from a sustainability and a profit margin, it blew anything I was going to do out of the water. And again, I'm not here to be second best. So if I can go with their project and become a partner project with those guys and build the portfolio, with them as a huge resource of it, that was the plan, and that's what the plan has turned into.
All right. So one of the things that we were going to get into is alpha shares, and that was going to be somewhere down the line. But I'm happy to jump into that first. Before I do that, you guys have launched. You're obviously now selling NFTs. How excited are you for the future of this project? At the minute, you must be quite excited for where you guys are going to be headed, right? You're finally at a point where you've thought about a project, you had something in mind, you've pivoted, you've now found a partnership that you think is going to really work. It's sustainable. It's going to give you the returns you want. I imagine from your personal point of view, this is a labor of love. And now you're at this stage, you must be pretty elated that you're here and excited for the future.
Absolutely. Because if you'd have talked to me 6 months ago, there was a total different plan on the roadmap for us. And to be where it is now, I'm stoked about it.
Right. Great. Good. And let that excitement spill out. Don't hold back either here. So, I'm sure all the investors want to hear it. Alpha shares. Talk to me about alpha shares. Let's work backwards a tiny bit. Why are they going to be pivotal for you? Because you're not the first project I've heard talk about alpha shares, and certainly not the first project I've heard talk about wanting to partner with them in some way. So they must have something unique about them, and something that is drawing projects like yourself in to want to partner with them. What was the pivotal thing for you in relation to that project?
The most pivotal thing is the people, because there's a lot of projects out there that, they might be someone that you can talk to behind the project, but with alpha shares, it's like I can get on the phone with the lead guys over there, and it's a real person I'm talking to with a real relationship. And then when they have relationships themselves on where they're going, and they're having one of the guys from alpha shares living down in Paraguay to oversee the whole project, that's ultimately the nail that, the final nail in the coffin for me.
Right. And do you want to give us a bit of a brief background on what Alpha Shares does? Because obviously it's integral to what you guys are doing at the moment. And I'm sure there are thoughts and plans to move into other projects. And we'll discuss that as we discuss what you guys have going on. But just as we stand now, what is it that Alpha Shares do? And why is that, other than the people, why is it that stood out?
Well, Alpha Shares in itself is a marketplace. But just like any other business in this bear market, if you were going to be sustainable and come through this bear market, you were going to figure out what can you do to bring revenue into your project. And they decided, hey, their whole Bitcoin mining was a good opportunity to do it, which there's a lot of projects and a lot of companies that have tried this. However, they just happen to be the company that has, they have people in Paraguay. And from an electricity standpoint, that is the number one place. Because just for the amount of surplus electricity and the cost of electricity, and then when you're hooking into a government that supports what you're doing because you're giving back into their economy, that's the biggest deal, right? Because they're going to a place that wants them versus going to Texas, where Texas, the United States just might as well just say, get the heck out of here.
Right. Okay. And it being outside of the United States, I guess you also saw as something that was going to be very interesting for you, i.e. you've mentioned a couple of times just the way the United States is showing its cards, especially in terms of crypto. You want to safeguard your community, your investors against any issues that might crop up.
100%. Yeah. So from what I've come to find out already, a lot of the people I've interacted with on the project, a lot of the people I've built a project with, they're not in the United States. So to put the project in the United States and then have any tax implications for them in the United States just seems well, it seems stupid for one thing, but also now that you can, like, it's not just not in the United States. It's basically in the Marshall Islands now. So now, because it's in the Marshall Islands, like they've launched this whole idea where you can actually have a legal entity in the Marshall Islands, and it can be a legal DAO, and then your DAO can actually be seen, you know, from a legal standpoint. It's a real thing, right? But that was the ultimate reason, to get it over to the Marshall Islands, and then that way, just from a world perspective, everyone interacting with it doesn't have to deal with you know basically anything from the United States.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, let's get into the juicy bits. First thing people are going to ask is, where are you guys in terms of the project? Have you launched? Are there phases to it? Are you in phase one? Are you past phase one? How many NFTs have been minted?
So right now we are in phase one. Technically, phase one opened up a couple hours ago.
Okay.
The term now. Okay. So let me break that up. Of the 5,000 NFTs we have 4,900 that are in like the regular bulls, and then we have 100 bulls that are what we call alpha bulls. And alpha bulls, if you look at my NFTs, they're the ones that have a staff in them in their hand, but they can have a bronze staff, a silver staff, and a gold staff. Anyway, I let those get minted first, or I gave the opportunity for those to get minted first. Now. Only, I want to say 11 of them got minted. And just to give you an idea, like the bronze are like $350, the silver is $1,000, and then the gold is $5,000. So right when I launched those, I had 2 people buy a gold and 4 people buy a silver. And that was kind of like the time when, like, okay, the project's actually going to kick off, because if people are willing to invest in that, then, you know, there's going to be enough traction to make this work now. Right. So 11 of those have gone off. And then in terms of the phase one minting, that, like, again, that's opened up a couple hours ago. And for phase one, all we're going to do is let 250 bulls go. And then we'll recollect and move on to phase two in due time. So once somebody's minted one of your NFTs, when does the earning for that particular person begin? What's the process from here on in? Because I know that there's a DAO aspect to this. I know there's going to be a phase of compounding that you guys are all going to vote on as well. But again, you know, one of the main things everybody listening is going to be interested in is, how do I get my return? So when would they expect to see either a return or the option to vote on whether or not they want to compound and get a return? Okay, yeah. So in terms of pretty much the roadmap for returns coming back, because Alpha Shares is going to be the huge proponent of the portfolio, and I didn't mention this, but so with their reserve NFTs, they've also reserved 500 of those reserve NFTs for our project. Mm-hmm. So the intent is we buy as many. We've already bought 10 of them. So we have $10,000 invested into 10 of those NFTs already that sit in the portfolio. But as we mint out, we buy more. So the intent is we have 550 of those NFTs. That's going to be the first driving force to bring rewards back into the portfolio. Now, that puts us on their timetable. So they have been saying anywhere between 90 and 100 days from when they sold out their reserve collection. So, okay. Yeah, so that puts us, I think we're on the same timeline. Now, in terms of what they're doing, like, they've already purchased the miners. They've already put down the down payment on the containers. So, I mean, they're on track to do that. And then they've also reached out to other companies that in the interim, they can host all their miners at another facility. So to say the timeline is probably, 3 months from now is when I expect rewards to start coming back into the project. Now, one of the first questions somebody's going to ask is, what happens if all of your initial NFTs don't mint out? Are you going to drop the price of those? Are you going to continue to keep it open until they do? Will you close it and revisit that at another time? How's that process going to work for you? If anything, we won't drop the price on any of the NFTs. They're already at lower than I ever wanted them to be. If anything, we raise the price. And the good thing about it is it doesn't matter about how many NFTs are there. So ultimately, the way this works as a DAO is you just have to stake one of the NFTs on the staking contract. And then the only people that are getting rewarded for the month are people that have staked an NFT. So, because there's still, let's just say 1,000 NFTs that haven't sold, that has no bearing on the amount of rewards that are going to come back to the project or come back for that particular NFT owner.
Right. Okay. All right. So let's start from the top. One of the first things that I am met with when I obviously go onto your site is I see these bulls. They're quite cool. They've got the staffs. They've got sunglasses on. They've got, their unique individual traits. So then I hit the white paper, and I'm immediately met with your lore, essentially, your folklore tale. What was the inspiration behind it?
To be honest, you can dig as far as you want into the lore of what the bulls are. It's not a very deep process at this point. The lore, I'll add on to the lore more into it, but I guess the more you dig into the white paper, you can figure out that this isn't exactly somewhat like an NFT project like a lot of the other ones, where it's just a chill and shill community. There's a fair amount of complexities in what we're trying to do in terms of just making it a DAO with the governance, with everything. The lore was really one of the last layers that came on top of that.
Right. It's interesting that you bring up that there's a lot of complexities and different things happening. Would it be a fair assessment to say that you guys you're still figuring out exactly where you want to go and what the final process of what you want to do is? You know your end goal. You know you've got a good product. As far as you're concerned, you've made the right relationship so far. But your white paper is a reflection on where you guys are at this current stage, and you're always going to be tweaking it. And therefore, if people want to not miss information or they want to see something a bit different, to perhaps continue to revisit your white paper as these changes come in.
Yes. And the other part is, because it's a DAO, once people get into the project, they're going to have a key role in helping guide the way the project goes. So It's not just like I'm a dictator going to make the rules. For example, like one of the things, and I was working on the white paper for this yesterday. So like the idea of a delegator, meaning every NFT is going to get a certain amount of Bullion tokens, and then you get 2 sets of Bullion tokens per month. Some are for rewards and some are for voting. But you have to vote on the project. Like, just in terms of, I want to emphasize how important that is, just in terms of a project in general. Because I'm sure you guys have seen just the amount of lawsuits that have come out from like this whole stake and earn idea. And the way we're not doing stake and earn is because if you hold one of my NFTs, I'm not rewarding you for holding an NFT. What I'm rewarding is anyone that collaborates with the DAO, and ultimately I'm rewarding collaborators. But to say that I'm trying to make this as minimal of a process as possible. Now, there's going to be some important stuff we have to vote on every month, but there's also going to be a part of the project that you can give your voting rights to a delegator, and the delegator can vote for you. But to incentivize the delegators of the project, for example, I was kind of kicking around the idea of like, maybe you give 5% of your rewards tokens to your delegator, since they're going to be acting on your behalf. They're going to be more, they're going to be more involved in the whole community. They're going to be whatever. Like, they're going to be, if you're a delegator in the project, you're going to be very knowledgeable on what we're doing, and you're going to be out there a lot. But there's a lot of people that might want that position. But that gets back into my idea of 5%. Well, that's not in the white paper yet, because that's going to be one of the first things we vote on as a project.
Right. Okay, there's a lot to unpack. So we are going to get to the DAO. I'm just going to pull it back a tiny bit, because I think what's important for everybody listening is just to understand exactly what the bulls do, what the normal bulls are, what the alpha bulls are, and what the gold bulls are. I think once they understand that, it really can then pique their interest to want to jump in, because at the center of what you've got going on, especially with your DAOs, is that people really need to be invested in this in order to want to take part. They've got to be invested, because you're going to be able to make the most of it if you are truly invested in this. And in order to be truly invested, you've got to understand the product kind of inside and out, right? Would you say that's a fair assessment?
I would say that is a fair. Yeah, it's a fair assessment. There's going to be some people in the project that get into the project, delegate their voting, and then they sit on the sideline passively. But from my point of view, and what I can stand on is that person still voted. So from a legal standpoint, they're a collaborator, and
Right.
and that protects the project and protects me in general. But ultimately, it protects the project.
Okay. One of the first things I noticed with the collection is after the law, one of the first things you then hit with is collection, and then you see an explanation of what the collection is. And in between, interspersed in between all of those things, I see, a frog and a turtle and staff. One of the observations that I can offer is that, what I really craved was an explanation as to what those frogs, those turtles, and the staffs are in relation to these NFTs. Because although you touch upon it a little bit, to me, there isn't a clear picture of where they fit in. So can you explain to me a little bit about where they fit in, what they're for, and what the benefit of minting one of those is if you get one?
Yeah, so the NFTs with the frog and the turtle. Now, when I made this project 6 months ago, I loved that frog and I wanted him to be special. It wasn't going to be one of the rare NFTs, but the fact that it's just a frog and a turtle, that was the two things that just stuck out to me. Like if I was going to make something on those NFTs rare, it was going to be those things. But in terms of what we've done with the project now is there's only 8 frogs and there's only 11 turtles.
Right.
But that gives like a minting bounty bonus, if you will. And ultimately those are randomly in the collection. And you can mint those. And if you happen to mint one of those, it has 2 incentives for you. First is the upfront incentive where you'll get basically an airdrop. So if I know your wallet has a frog or a turtle, well, once that phase is over, you're going to get airdropped a certain amount. I think a frog gets $1,000, a turtle gets $750. But that's the upfront bonus. The other bonus behind that is that NFT earns more bullion per month. And again, that bullion comes back in terms of that's kind of the share of how much you get rewarded, and also the share in how many points you have towards voting.
Right. So when people are minting, they're really looking to get one of these special creatures. And if they get one of the turtles or the frogs, by the way, do you have a pet turtle or a frog? Are you a reptilian lover? Is that the reason why they're in?
To be totally honest, I don't have one, and my dog ate the turtle a couple years ago.
Your dog genuinely ate the turtle? Is the dog still around, or did you get rid of him?
He generally tried to eat the turtle. The dog's still around. The turtle is not.
Right, fine. Okay, so you were a turtle lover, but unfortunately the turtle met its demise, but now lives on in these NFTs. Is that fair to say?
That is a very fair statement.
Right, great. Okay. So once they mint one of these, they are obviously going to be excited because it gives them a boost. The staff, is that the exact same thing? Do the colors of the staff make a difference in terms of how much they boost?
Yes. So the staffs, those are the alpha bulls. There's 100 of them. There's 60 bronze staffs, 30 silver staffs, and 10 gold staffs. And I don't know if you guys have ever been on a project that, they have like these rare NFTs, and then they start the project and they give all their friends the ability to have like the most rare attributes on the project. Well, to be honest, that has rubbed me the wrong way since day one. So you can crunch the numbers, but what I'm telling you is the gold staffs, they cost more, but the amount of bullion they get per month it's a huge number, but it's in relation to the cost of the NFT.
What is that? What are those numbers?
So a gold NFT gets 1 million bullion tokens per month. Whereas, but again, that's a $5,000 NFT. A regular NFT, you can be whitelisted and get that for $115 or $120 right now. Okay.
So I'm going to interject for a second because you said whitelisted, and that always piques everybody's interest. And I'm fairly certain there'll be a couple of people typing how whitelist when whitelist. So before we continue, can you explain if people can get whitelisted at the minute and how they might be able to get whitelisted?
Okay, yeah. And whitelisting, that's also one of those terms that, it depends what project you're talking about. For my project, whitelisting means you get a bonus on buying regular NFTs for the duration of the project. The duration meaning from until they sell out. How do you get whitelisted? Hop in my Discord, and then there's a channel that says whitelist submission that says put your wallet in there. That list hasn't filled up. So if
and how many spots have you got left?
Probably 30.
Okay, so only 30. So that's not as many as the people listening right now. So if people really want it, I've just thrown the link into our stage questions. If people really want to get a whitelist, they just jump into your Discord and ask to get one of those. Fantastic. All right, so kind of let's keep going. When you want to mint one of these, you can mint by quantity up to 10. Is that right?
You can mint up to 10 in a single transaction. Okay. There is no limit to how many you can hold on the project.
Right. But the interesting thing is you can't hold a certain, or you can hold a certain percentage of the DAO power. But if you do get to a certain point, then you're going to be required to KYC, which is something that we're going to come up to later. So people can mint, but there may be certain requirements. If you do want to mint a ton of these, you hold a significant amount of voting power. Is that right?
Yes. So the way it works with any DAO in the Marshall Islands, if you hold 25% or more of the voting power of the LLC, you have to KYC yourself. I've had to KYC myself because I started it and someone has to do it. But I've put a whale cap onto the project to say no one will hold more than 7% of the vote, even myself. Right. So I'm not holding 25%. I'm holding 7%. And anyone that if you have 500 NFTs, you're going to be capped at 7% for the voting. However, the key distinction between that is I'm only capping your voting. I will not cap the reward tokens you own, which again, that's why your bullion tokens that you earn per month are split into rewards and voting. So you'll still get rewarded. If you own a bunch of NFTs, well, you're going to get a bigger share of the pie. But in terms of voting, that's where the whale cap comes in to say, we're not going to have one person in the project that owns 50% of it, and then voting is pointless.
Okay, so you're capping it. But in any case, I imagine, what happens, for example, I mean, this is a question I think is valid. What happens if somebody who isn't governed by Marshall Island rules does suddenly hold a large percentage? How do you then control whether or not they do or don't KYC? What would happen in an instant like that?
They can't hold more than 7%. So it doesn't matter how many you hold in terms of and what's written in the operating agreement on the Marshall Islands and what's written on the contract is once that gets processed every month, if you hold above 7% of the total bullion staked, it's just going to drop your percentage down to 7%.
Right. Understood. As you mint NFTs for each amount that you want between 1 and 10 to mint in a single transaction, you get a bonus. Is that right?
If you're whitelisted, you get a bonus.
Okay.
So the way
and what are those bonuses?
So if you're whitelisted, you get basically a 20% discount if you mint 1 or 2, and then if you mint 3 or 4, you get 1 extra NFT. If you mint 5 or 6, you get 2 extra NFTs. You mint 7 or 8, you get 3, and 9 or 10, you get 4 NFTs. So ultimately, if you are whitelisted, and for example, let's just say you minted 10 in one transaction, it would cost you 10. So it would at the current price, it would be $1,500, but that would be 10 times 150. But the contract would mint out an extra 4 to your wallet.
Right, and this is meant to be rewarding people who mint as much as they can. Is that right?
So
you're rewarding people for the more they mint.
Yes, the more you mint. Well, for one thing, it means you're more invested into the project, so I'm going to reward you for that. But it's also broken down into phases. So the whole minting is split down into phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and then phase 4, which is the public. But also on the contract itself, if you mint, I keep count of how many NFTs you mint for the phase. And then at the end of the phase, whoever minted the most gets at least for phase 1, you get a turtle. For phase 2, you get a turtle. An NFT with a turtle, which again, that's an airdrop, and then that's more bullion for that NFT. And then if you mint the most during the public phase, you get a turtle and a frog, which again, that's a fairly nice airdrop, and then those NFTs earn more bullion.
One of the observations I wanted to make is that somebody who might mint 10 is perhaps getting a slightly smaller percentage bonus in terms of somebody who might mint 7 or 8. Was there a thinking behind that? Is it perhaps something that you're going to revisit and maybe reward people with more? It was just an observation that I found and thought maybe the sweet spot for somebody to mint is, I think, 7. I think the highest percentage bonus you can get is if you mint 7. I'm just wondering if that was something that you guys had in mind.
So technically, you'll get the best bang for the buck at 10. The intent was, or I think actually 9, you'll get the most.
9, 44.45%, I think, at 9, and 40% at 10.
The way it was originally going to work was you could only mint a certain amount of numbers, but you can mint 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, or 9. And then we put the project, it became a feature project on Alpha Shares, and then you can also mint from the contract from Alpha Shares now. But it just seemed like a simpler idea to just allow 1 through 10. That way on Alpha Shares and our project, you can go 1 through 10. And then also that needed to be a parameter for the paper .xyz. So to buy the NFTs with the credit cards, it's just a lot simpler to make that function to say 1 through 10 and not have to handle the logic on their side to say, like, you can only mint these certain numbers.
Okay. Fair enough. That's a reasonable explanation.
But to your point, it's in the white paper on terms of the bonus you're going to get per NFT and what that breaks down per the price per NFT. That it makes more sense to pick the best number right there. And
right. Okay. So as we get into it, you've got bullion rewards. I'm moving down the white paper as we go. So the reward distribution, explain that to me. This is what people perhaps are going to need to have a little bit of time to digest the information and get their heads around it. And then once they do, they can get excited by it. How is your reward distribution, in its simplest terms, going to work for people that are passive first? And then we'll discuss the gamification aspect and the DAO aspect.
So basically, the bullion works like tickets or points. And again, let's just say, just for a simplistic example, if there's 10,000 points that got staked for the month and you own 1,000 of them, well, that's your 1,000 represents 10% of all the staked points. Now, in reality, for the NFTs, there's going to be a lot more than that. I think the total points or the total amount of bullion tokens, if the whole project minted out and everyone staked one of their NFTs, it would be like 107 million bullion tokens. But you would get paid for the percentage that you have of those tokens.
Right. Okay. And how often are those rewards coming back?
Once a month.
Once a month. Same date once a month? Is it a variable date once a month?
It's going to be roughly the same date. Right now, it's probably going to be in the middle of the month. And that becomes an important part of how the whole project works, because if we want to get into that, I snapshot the amount of bullion tokens earned by every wallet at the beginning of the month.
Right. That's a manual snapshot that you take rather than automatic, yeah?
Well, it can be both.
Okay.
I have it on the contract where I can make it an automatic to do it on the first of the month, or I can do it manually. But either way, it's going to be on the first of the month.
Right. Sorry, I interjected. You were saying, so you're going to snapshot those to see how much each is earned in rewards, and then what happens?
So when I snapshot the bullion points, that tells me how many bullion points and tokens everyone has for the voting and the rewards. But that breaks down into two sections. That's kind of like having chips for every NFT owner to play with. And that's where the whole gamification comes in, because you can own 100,000 tokens, for example. And then over the next 2 weeks, because I snapshot the points on the first of the month, and then we'll pay out the rewards on the middle of the month. So the idea is you have a point system on the contract that you can leverage those points in bull battles and other gamification aspects we bring onto the project. So maybe you have just the NFTs you own, you only have 100,000 bullion tokens that you earn per month, but you can play games. If you want to leverage them, you can leverage all 100,000 of them, or you can leverage 15,000 of them. And then by the time it gets to the actual reward part of it on the middle of the month, once I call that function, it matters how many bullion tokens you own at that point in time in the middle of the month.
Right. I'm curious. Where did you get the inspiration for the gamification from? Are you a gamer yourself? Do you play games? Do you maybe dabble a little bit in Vegas? How did you kind of come to the idea that this was the process that you wanted to run through?
Oh, I love games. Absolutely. So like,
what's your favorite game?
I'm actually not much of a video gamer. Right now, I play game. I don't know if you're familiar with bocce ball, but
I'm not. Is that the one with the small trampoline in the middle?
No, it's got like a little ball that you throw, and then the objective of the game is throw another ball and try to get closest to it. But It doesn't matter what it is. You could be throwing rocks. Like the second competition gets involved with it, like it piques my interest incredibly, and that's been my whole life at this point. Is how to compete, and it doesn't it doesn't matter if we're throwing rocks or skipping rocks on water. It doesn't matter.
And did you bring that mindset through to what you were creating, especially when you were thinking about the gamification?
So, gamification brings camaraderie and it gets people into the whole community and brings excitement onto a lot of the projects I've seen. Mm-hmm. However, going back to like what the whole point of the project is building a portfolio that actually rewards, and you don't have to come spend $100 a month to play in our ecosystem. If you're a bull holder, you're going to get those tokens automatically.
But those tokens are to be utilized best throughout the few weeks after you've taken the snapshots. And that is where the gamification comes in, the bull battles, the bull run, the death battles, those kind of things, right?
Yes. So the bull battles, the death battles, all that takes place between the first of the month and the middle of the month.
Right. Okay. So let's talk through them. What is the bull run?
So the bull run in its simplest form is you elect. So say you have a staked NFT, you just basically check a box that says, hey, I want to be in the bull run. And what that does is it puts one of your bulls into the bull run. Now, when I put it into the bull run, what that does, let's just say you own one NFT. Well, if you put that NFT into the bull run, I lock that NFT away from you. So you can't enter the bull run and then go sell your NFT. Because essentially what you're doing is wagering amount of bullion and then going to sell your NFT. But what that is you can basically check a box. It enters your bull into the bull run, and the wager is 18,000 bullion tokens from every staked NFT. So if, let's just say 500 people check that box per month, well, one person's going to get called from Chainlink's VRF function, and then every other bull in there is going to have 18,000 bullion tokens transferred from their account into that person's account.
Right. And then once they've got all of this 18,000, bearing in mind the snapshot came before, what's the benefit to them at this point for winning?
Okay, so if we play out the example of someone owns one NFT, they put it in the bull run, and then that's just an automatic process, right? So you would select, I want my bull to be in the bull run kind of in the last couple weeks of the month prior. But what that does, if just by the numbers, if you own one NFT, you have 18,000 bullion tokens that you're going to earn. If let's just say there's 500 people in the bull run and that person wins, well, he gets 500 times 18,000 bullion tokens transferred to his account. So instead of, when it comes to the reward aspect in the middle of the month, instead of getting rewarded for 18,000 tokens, now that person owns 1.5 million tokens, or whatever that math comes out to be. But it gives them, if they want to gamify it, it gives them the ability to wager their tokens and have a much larger payday.
Okay. And one of the questions I guess people are going to ask with all of these is, and you've already said that you can be a passive rather than an active participant in this ecosystem, is some people will say, well, how many, how do your ball holders earn points to unlock additional investment opportunities? There is nothing to unlock, right? You don't need to stake something somewhere in order to get X, Y, or Z. You can be a passive participant and still receive that passive income.
Yes, the intent is you have to stake your NFT and then you have to vote every month. Now,
Right.
that can be a manual vote that you come in and click some stuff, or we're going to be launching delegators. You can delegate and give your voting, basically your voting tokens to someone, and they'll vote on your behalf, and that'll satisfy your need to vote. Now,
Right.
but the way this works out and the way it can be a passive play for people is you can stake an NFT and just leave it staked. That's all you got to do. It just has to be one NFT. You can own 50 of them. You just need to stake one of them and keep it staked. I'm not going to automatically unstake it every month. And then the other key part is the way it is. If you want to be passive and you don't want to play any of the games, well, the Boolean is capped. So regardless if it's a bull battle or it's a death battle, there will never be any more Boolean tokens that came from the snapshot. Meaning,
Understood.
So if let's just say someone, wants to be a passive play, right? And they don't want to play the games. Well, if they get their snapshot at the beginning of the month, they own 100,000 tokens. Well, their 100,000 is still going to be represented against the total Boolean pot, if you will. So the percentage they have will not change. If anything, it'll be better. The only thing it can do is get better. It can't get worse.
Right. Okay. We will get to the DAO. Let's talk about the next game that I see here, which is Cattle Tag Math Bounty. What is that?
Oh, so the Cattle Tag Math Bounty is every bull has a mathematics symbol on their ear.
Right.
Some of them are operators, which is like a plus, minus, divide, multiply, and then some are just a number. But the intent of the game is through, maybe it's a Twitter post, maybe it's something we build out where you have to find the number at the beginning of the month. But the game is, once the number comes out, it's the first person to own those NFTs in a single wallet will get, let's just say, for the sake of money, it might be $1,000 a month. So first person to own the NFTs that can basically get an equation to equal that number wins the math bounty.
And how would they get those NFTs?
However you want. You either bought them to start with, or you can buy them on secondary marketplaces.
Will those be the only two options? Or are you encouraging kind of interpersonal conversations in which somebody, outside of the secondary marketplace, they might have a conversation with one another and say, hey, listen, I'll loan it to you for this amount. What I'm trying to get at is it's a very interesting concept to say, right, well, you've got to accrue all of these NFTs. It is going to encourage, obviously, selling on the secondary market, but I can also foresee the secondary market being bypassed and perhaps people getting to a stage where they might say, well, I'm going to rent this to you for X amount. You give me something back as collateral. And then, once you get your reward on this occasion, because you only need my one to complete it, you can give it back. And then, you return the favor at another day. Is that something that you foresee happening?
Absolutely. Like, that's human nature. People are going to do that. Right. But the way to, I don't care if that happens, but the way to make that a fair opportunity is you still have to send each NFT to a separate wallet, which gives time that's just as much time for someone else to buy that needed NFT off of OpenSea, put it in their wallet, and submit their answer.
Okay, and will these be tracked in any other way? Is there going to be, do you guys plan to have an interesting DApp, for example, that's going to track these, that maybe perhaps makes it a bit more competitive and visually appealing at the same time? Because this kind of concept is very fun, and there are going to be a lot of people that are listening that are going to be thinking, oh, actually, that sounds like something I'd really like to get into, because, it can be fun to try and haggle with somebody, to try and search through OpenSea to get a big reward. So yeah, will you create something that makes it visually appealing? And will these rewards grow over time? So, how significant an amount could they become?
So, first question, will the rewards grow every month? Again, this will come down to a vote from the community, right? If we'll start at probably $1,000 a month, but if we want to make it a percentage and say, 3% of the total profit for the month goes to this, well, 3% as we move on and march on and build a bigger basically a bigger portfolio, that can certainly become a larger number. I lost my train of thought. What was the first question?
No. So that was one of the questions. The second question was, are you going to perhaps make a DApp that will have this become visually appealing to people?
Yes. So the way I envision it is once there'll be a spot on the website where it'll have, and here's the key part that I didn't mention about the number. So again, the number might be on Twitter. It might be like in a metaverse where you have to like find clues and you'll figure out the number that way. That's unknown at this point. But the key point of the number is you have to get the number with the correct amount of operators. So I built a script to basically get the number. If you don't limit the operators, which is the plus, minus, multiply, divide signs, there are the amount of the ways to derive a number with an infinite amount of operators it's a stupid number, to be honest. So I might give a number, let's just say 2,000, and say you have to get 2,000 with only 2 operators. So that limits the targets of the numbers that people will go after.
Right. And for anybody that might be struggling to keep up with what you're saying, in its simplest terms, what do you mean by that? What are you trying to say? Are you effectively saying that you're going to ensure that it is still an enjoyable and not easily obtainable, but reasonably obtainable goal that at least one person is going to be able to get at the end of each one?
Yes. So the idea is I can limit the operators and say you can only use 2 operators or 3 operators, and there can be 500 ways to get to the number, which gives everyone a diverse path to get to the number. But I'll limit the operators enough to make it a competitive game and not just, where I don't want there to be 100,000 ways to get the number. That defeats the purpose.
Of course, yeah, understood.
In terms of the games, or in terms of the website, yes, we're actually talking about that today. So you'll be able to see the NFTs you own in your wallet when you log into the website, and then there'll be a tab for this math game. But ultimately, all your NFTs will be at the top, and you can slide through them, and you just have to slide your NFT down into the block. And then that has to be like number plus number times number. And it has to mathematically check out when you hit checkout. And if it mathematically checks out and you're the first one, well, congratulations.
Now, with these games, before we continue on to the next ones, I mean, one of the questions that's going to be leveled at you is, the gamification is obviously a tool that you're using for participation. And something like this is very interesting, but complex as well, especially when it has to be laid out in the manner in which you're laying it out. Are you going to have some educational tools for people that might be struggling to keep up now but want to revisit this? They want to come back and say, right, can I watch a video perhaps? For those visual learners that can't necessarily get to grips with it straight away verbally, are you going to have something in the pipework for them to really learn how to play this so that they can get the full enjoyment from it?
100%. Yeah. And again, that was half the reason to where the gamification is optional. And I want to stress the optional side of it because, again, one of the people that bought the 5,000, one of the people that bought one of the gold NFTs, they're not going to ever play a game, and they already said that, which is fine. They don't have to.
It depends. You make it super easy for them to understand. They might change their mind, right? If they see everyone else having fun, they don't want to be the only kid sitting at the edge of the playground not doing anything.
Yes, 100%. Now, will we put out like documentation and videos on like how these can work? Absolutely. But in addition to that, once we decide these games and we build these games, and not only like build these games ourselves, but integrate with other projects, other technical opportunities where we could bring NFTs into those games, we're going to do that on testnet as well. So for the month, if you want to partake in the games with nothing to, you're not wagering your actual Boolean tokens, you can do that on testnet. And we'll just give you fake tokens. You can figure out what's going on, and then you're not at risk for losing anything.
Understood. And in terms of the language in which all of this will be explained, are you going to have a multi-language option for people that might struggle a little bit with English? Will you go for the core languages, for example?
Well, right now it's only in English, but the way I see it, I'm just one click away from ChatGPT telling me how to translate that.
Absolutely. Yes, you are. Okay, so death battles. Tell me about that. It sounds ominous. I like ominous. Explain to me how, like the unfortunate turtle, death battles works.
So right now, a death battle is a one-on-one battle. So for the way it's going to work is it's a one-on-one game, and the idea is we're going to make these skill games. So if it's, I don't know if you've ever played like Madden, like the football game on PlayStation, for example.
I have, yes.
Okay, it can be a game of Madden, for example, where it's going to be a YouTube game. It's going to be something that people can watch. 2 players play it. And then ultimately, in order to play that game, you're going to have to submit an NFT. And the way it works is if whoever wins the death battle, they get 75% of the Boolean from that NFT that lost.
That's a very interesting concept. And before I let you continue, may I just say, one of the observations I have is that this is the kind of thing that I think is very interesting. And I know some games, especially PlayStation games, have brought out, I'm going to say gambling, but that's for lack of a better word in this aspect. But putting up collateral in a game like this, one of the things that is perhaps lost, especially in the death battles aspect, is this. It kind of got lost that this was the direction that you were going in, and I was kind of hoping it was. So effectively what you're saying is 2 people can come into an arena, a metaphorical arena. They can lay down a couple of NFTs, and they can decide what they're going to battle it out against. Do they decide, or do you decide? Are you going to be the one that picks the games?
No. If you're a master chess player and you want to have a death battle against someone else in chess, like, go have a death battle in something you feel comfortable with. If you don't know what chess is, good God, don't go play in a death battle with chess.
Right. Okay, so you can. So really, this is going to make it exciting for people that want to challenge each other to whatever game they want to play, be it chess, be it Uno, be it bocce, be it FIFA, anything that they decide that they want to go. Do they set the terms? So if you're playing a PlayStation game, for example, will you say, right, this is going to be the best of 3, the best of 5? Where do they then send their NFT? Who holds the NFTs? And at what point does the person that's won get paid out?
So we will have to iron that out, but ultimately there's going to be a contract that the rules are going to be laid out on the contract. So, and you'll submit an NFT and you'll sign the transaction. Ultimately, you're sending the NFT to that contract. So it's not your NFT anymore. And then once that gets played out, the winner there's a transfer of Boolean tokens that just get updated on the contract to say, well, NFT number 26, now they get X amount of additional Boolean tokens per month generated for them. And then the losing NFT gets sent to basically a graveyard wallet, which is a wallet that no one owns.
Right, understood. What kind of game do you think is going to be popular with this? What kind of thing do you think people will use as a game to compete against one another? Or let me rephrase, what are you hoping to see?
I am hoping to see, to be honest, anywhere between 50 and 100 games. I was playing Catan on Steam with someone else the other day. Like, I was that can be an easy game to integrate with, where you have to submit an NFT at the start of that game. I don't know if you ever played Catan, but that's an example of a game.
Right. Okay. I think it's a very interesting concept, and I think that's going to be one of the things that people are going to be excited about, the fact that they can wager and choose their own game to wager against. Talk to me now about the DAOs. We've mentioned it a couple of times. You've stressed the importance of it. Talk to me about how it works and how it's set up.
So let me just go back one time on the whole death battle. So
Sure.
that the death battles brings up the battle stones, and the battle stones I think are quite honestly the coolest part of the project. So the way that's going to work is if you compete in a death battle and you win, your NFT, not only does it get updated with the amount of bullion you're going to earn every month, you're going to have a battle stone imprinted on your NFT from that point forward. And it's going to change. So like there's a stone that represents 1, there's a stone that represents 2, and it goes all the way up to 10. And if someone gets more than 10, well then we'll revisit that and make another stone. But the beauty of that, there's 2 beauties of that. Number 1, the losing NFT has to give up, or the winning NFT gets 75% of the losing NFT. And it's not like a certain number, it's 75%. So if, for example, you were facing like a regular NFT and say like a silver Alpha Bull NFT, well, if someone wants to wager their silver Alpha Bull, first off, they might be crazy, I'm not sure, but you can ultimately take 75% of their bullion tokens. But the idea behind that is 75% leaves 25% off the table, which works as like a deflationary mechanism on the whole project. So once bulls start dying, now everyone's bullion is just worth that much more.
Right. But that's not in relation to the DAO, right? The voting.
Well, I mean, technically, yeah, because if you lose that NFT and that you no longer own it in your wallet, well, then you're not going to generate those voting bullion tokens per month.
Right, understood. Let's deep dive into those voting bullion tokens. Talk to me about why it is that you believe that they are, an integral part of this. One of the things that is a running theme through your white paper and what I've seen in your Discord is that, the DAO, the community is important. Some of the questions people are going to ask is, do you listen to the community for suggestions? The answer is yes, you're going to be able to vote on things. So people are then going to want to know, well, how can I vote? Well, how much of my vote will count? Talk us through that in the finer details, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So the key point behind the voting is I brought this up a couple of weeks ago when I was signing this over in the Marshall Islands. And because, in the contract it says owner, whoever founds basically the DAO has 25% of the voting rights. Mm-hmm. And I don't want 25% of the voting rights because that negates any person, in the project basically, because a smaller vote, it doesn't really matter because if I come in with 25% of the votes, well, it's pretty much I get last say on anything. But that's not the intent and not what I want. So that's why I'm limiting myself and any other whale that gets into the project at 7%. So the majority of NFT holders will own the outright majority of a bullion that can go towards voting. So to say that everyone's voice can be heard in this project, absolutely.
Right. So the max you're going to be able to get is 7%. Now, what can people vote on? What are the kind of things that they can expect to see, if they've got up to 7% worth of the voting rights? Where is their vote going to count towards?
Their vote is going to count towards everything that goes on in the project. And that could be, every month. So every month we have to decide on a percentage of the profits that come back to the project. How much do we want to keep in reserve to invest in the next project? I don't know what that number is. Maybe that's 30%. Maybe it's 10%. That'll be something we vote on. Like, how much rewards does someone have to give up to hire a delegator for their voting tokens so they can be completely passive and hand over their voting tokens to a delegator? That's going to be something you can vote on. What's the next thing we invest in? That's definitely going to be something we vote on. But so to say, let me just wrap up and say, we're going to vote on a lot of stuff.
Right. People are always going to be interested in those votes. One of the things that I can imagine happening, bearing in mind that a lot of what you're doing is centered around the gamification, and there's some really fun stuff happening there. What if somebody tries to gamify the votes by trying to hold multiple wallets that give them X amount of voting rights, and what they end up wanting to do or continue to vote on is compounding or reinvesting 100%, because what they think they're going to be able to do is continue to compound for 12 months and then really start to reap those rewards. Is there going to be something that you have in place to stop the same vote going through over a consistent period of time? So, for example, would you force perhaps profit to be taken every fourth vote or eighth vote? How will you manage that if that eventuality cropped up?
So right now, in terms of the way the project's going to work, in terms of how much we can vote to keep back and not disperse as rewards, is only up to 50%. So if people wanted to hold back, the maximum we could per month is 50%.
Okay. Oh, so there are maximums that people are going to be able to vote on in that respect. And does that also go for the compounding into the same project? So, with alpha shares, you're going to have a compounding period. How long is that for, that period of compounding? Is that also 50%, or is the compounding 100%?
So technically in alpha shares, so once we buy our allotment of NFTs that they've reserved for us, once that starts producing rewards coming back to the project, those rewards are going to come back to NFT holders from day one. Now that's where we as a community will vote. Like, do we want to get all these rewards back, or do we want to, take 30% and just keep rolling it back into the project?
Okay. But as it currently stands, 50% is the max they could do that with, but there is no cap on how many times that can be voted for. So, part of the system will be to allow that free vote to happen, if it is indeed a free vote. And if somebody has gamified it in the sense that they hold a bunch of NFTs and hold a large voting power over different wallets, then that's okay, I guess, because they're the ones that are going to be benefiting largely from their own vote.
Yes, and so there will be another component of guardians in the project. Now, These are going to be key people that are highly invested in the project that almost act like a governing body. So if for some reason someone does own a lot of tokens and they have malicious intent, like that's a governing body that can just veto and basically essentially just veto the whatever that person is trying to do if it seems malicious towards what we're doing.
Okay, so there's a couple of things I wanted to discuss with that. I was interested in the Guardians, and I wanted to. The first question with them is, how are you going to vet them? Who is going to be responsible for appointing somebody a Guardian? Do people come forward and say, "I'd like to be someone who's a Guardian"? Do you look to the community and say, "Let's vote on who we think is trustworthy"? What are the criteria that you're going to set out for those roles?
Yeah, so if you want to be a guardian in the project, you're going to have to be there. There is no anonymity that's going to be with a guardian. Like, you have your face is going to have to be out there. Now, in terms of who gets voted as the guardians, there's going to be a portal where you're going to have a profile, and then I'm going to do an interview with anyone that wants to put in an application to be a guardian or to be a designator or a delegator, I mean. But there's going to be a whole profile to where if you want to know who that person is, read the bio, watch the video, you'll get a sense of who they are, and they have to be transparent to the project. It's not going to be some random Discord name that's a guardian of the project.
Right, so they're going to have to KYC through you effectively, and that KYC is going to be open to the public via your DApp, and that's something that they're going to have to agree to. In the worst case scenario that you don't get anybody that agrees to that, how will you move forward? And I know that's a doomsday scenario in a sense, but it is, I think, a reasonable question, given that we're in DeFi, given that people like, for the most part, the anonymity of DeFi, especially as investors, not project leads or owners. So if for whatever reason you have people that don't want to come forward, or it's only one or two people, how will you navigate that eventuality?
If that comes down to it, then we won't have those guardians at that time, or we won't have that many delegators.
Okay.
But that's why we also, for example, the delegators, that's why a key component of that is saying if you want to bestow your voting tokens to someone else for the month, then you would have to give a certain percentage of your reward tokens. That rewards anyone that wants to step up and be a delegator for the project.
Right. And why would somebody step up and be a delegator?
Some people just like the idea of being a key part of a project. And then the other people, like, if you're going to get rewarded for it, And that's the value for them, because they would get more bullion tokens, and thus they would get a bigger reward at the end of the month.
I think the reason I ask that is because one of the key things surrounding DAOs is that, for people to want to vote and for want to be active and head into that activeness of being in a protocol, like I said at the top of the Q&A, one of the key aspects of that is that they've got to be truly invested in the product that they've bought into, right? They've got to really also truly believe in it. But that then comes down to what are the delegators, the guardians, and at the very top, yourself going to be doing to encourage those people in, which is why I ask. So I'm really curious as to what mindset it is that you want from the guardians and the delegators, and the mindset that you have that is going to give your investors the knowledge that you're working truly for them, and anybody else that comes in is also moving forward with that same energy to help this grow.
Yeah, so again, because I'm going to be the one that vets them out in the beginning, if they don't pass, like if I get a bad feel from somebody, they're not even going to have their profile put up to get voted on.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm like, that's kind of in a way a little more of a CEO-ish move on my part from the beginning, but I've tried to be as transparent in this whole project as possible. And, at least for the start of it, someone has to step up and do that. And, since I built the project, ultimately that's just going to be me.
Right. Okay. And that's, an interesting thing to say for you to acknowledge is that it is a more of a CEO role. One of the questions I often get from people is, well, how does this play into the core of what DeFi is, right? The decentralized aspect of what you're doing. And in this aspect, you're acknowledging that there is a sense of centralization. And to begin with, at the very least, it's going to have to come down to personalities. And if your personality doesn't, mesh well with theirs, then they might not necessarily get in. The flip side of that coin I would push back with is, I could be an asshole, but very good at what I do, and, someone who could potentially bring a lot of value to a project. So, if you have enough community members stepping forward and saying, for example, we really want this person to be, one of the guardians, we think they're going to be great for the project, but you personally don't like them, will you set aside your personal feelings in that regard and listen to the wider audience and say, okay, you guys have asked for this, so therefore let's go ahead and try it for a month or two and see how it works out?
Yeah, so if there's an overwhelming support from the community that wants someone, to be a guardian, for example, like as long as there's not something glaring that says like, please don't let this person be a guardian. Like if I know just that, from founder to founder through the network I've built up, like that is a shady dude that will lie and steal and has a track record of that, then I don't want to have anything to do with them on the project. But if I don't have a reason to believe that about somebody, benefit of the doubt. Like if the community wants it, that's why we're voting for it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I guess talking about the vetting of people, tell me about your team. Who are you working with at the moment? Who's the lead dev that you have outside of yourself? How did you find them? And why is it that they're the people that you went with to work with? And why do you trust them?
Yeah, so currently on the project, there's two people that have built the project, myself and a guy named Samim. Mm-hmm. I started building this project almost 2 years ago, and I think I hired 7 people off Fiverr, and 6 of those guys sucked, for lack of a better term. Like Samim was a winner from day one. And so once he got done with the gig that I bought from him on Fiverr, like that's when I asked him, like, hey man, like, do you want to build a project with me? And he's been with me for almost over a year now. But again, like I know him through Fiverr, but I've basically talked with him more than most people in my life over the past year.
Right.
But it's only been me and him.
Right. So are you planning to expand on the team? Are you going to be bringing other people in? And which areas are you looking to expand on first?
So in terms of expanding on the team, yeah, there'll be key roles. Like, for example, some developer is going to get on the team when we build out, a metaverse, for example, for this project. And I'm a big fan of like building out a metaverse in 8 months and not today, just because I can probably tell some AI robot to build it out for me. And that's something that a lot of the failed projects couldn't do 2 years ago.
Right.
But there's going to be key people that come into the project for sure.
And a lot of times when I do these Q&As, people press and press and press to say, when will you expand? When can they expect people to come in? When can they expect marketing to happen, for example? In terms of timelines, roadmaps, do you have an idea in your head, be it weeks, months, perhaps years in the future, that you foresee these things occurring?
In terms of bringing people into the
because there's only so much you're going to be able to do between the two of you, right? Eventually, your hope is to outgrow just two people and add people in, and then on top of that, there's marketing, and with marketing comes a larger Discord. With a larger Discord comes somebody who might need to manage the communication there. So I guess at some point you're going to look to expand that team so that it can really be propped up and supported.
Yeah, absolutely. Because again, like there's only so much I can do, and I've already figured that out. That you try to do everything on a project, there's not enough time in the day for it. Now, when that happens, I don't know. I will say though that the project of the ranch is more than just the bulls on the ranch. So there's going to be other animals that come on this ranch. I feel very strongly about that. But as other parts of the project get built up, other people are going to come into the project to build those up. And then that's going to be a key role that probably brings them into the project.
Okay. Your NFTs, can you upgrade them, or do you just need to mint a new one in order to be able to benefit from a higher tiered NFT?
So you can either hold a lot, or that's where the death battles will come in. And if you have an NFT with battle stones on it, it's gonna be valuable because it took bullion potential from all the NFTs that it beat. So there's going to be regular bulls on the project that were bought for $100 that could potentially be worth more than the gold bulls.
Understood, because of how much that person has won.
Yes, and it's not that person. So it's really how much that NFT has won. So whoever's the lucky person that owns that on their wallet, good for them.
Again, this is another thing that I crave to read in the white paper that is very interesting about what you're doing. And it's a good distinction to pull me out on and correct me on, which is how much the NFT, not the individual, has won. That NFT can be sold on the open market. It can be accrued in other ways, as we've discussed, and someone could eventually hold an NFT that has won quite a lot. And that's where the value lies, right? And that's where this becomes interesting. So people will be able to sell an NFT that might be worth a lot more because it's won a bunch. They're only letting go of it because perhaps they need the money or they're moving on from the project or whatever it might be. And someone else can swoop in and benefit from that and then start to build upon what they've now got in terms of winnings.
Yes, so for example, those battle stones, not only do I think they look awesome, but if you see an NFT with battle stones on OpenSea, it's going to be worth more just by nature of the project.
Right. I like that aspect of it. Another question that's going to be leveled at you is the deflationary aspect of your bullion. How do you believe that is going to benefit your ecosystem, your project? Why have you created it and formulated it in the way that you have?
Well, from the early beginning, the stance of it is all these games are optional. So that took out any additional bullion that I could ever create from a game. So it's not like I can create some monthly game to say the winner of this gets 100,000 bullion, because that bullion has to come from somewhere. And that's where the whole deflationary aspect has come in, because we didn't necessarily have to make it deflationary. Like I could have, the only thing that makes it deflationary is the fact that in death battles, only 75% of the bullion tokens get transferred to the winner. If 100% got transferred, this wouldn't be deflationary at all.
Right, understood. You also have a buddy system, right? You have an affiliate link system that's going to reward people for bringing people in. Is that correct?
Correct. So if anyone comes into the project and uses your address as their buddy, the way that works out on a monthly basis is if once all the rewards are distributed. So for example, like in the example of there's 1,000, or let's just say there's 10,000 bullion tokens, and let's say I'm distributing $1,000 onto the contract. Well, you own 10% of the bullion tokens. You're going to get 10% of that $1,000. Well, when that gets distributed on the contract itself, whoever your buddy is, as long as your buddy owns an NFT and is like an active member of the DAO, meaning they have a staked NFT, then they're going to get 2% of whatever you got. So in that instance, it's not going to be much, but of the $100 that was coming back to you, they would get 2%. So you get $98, and then your buddy gets $2.
Right, understood. Perhaps this is me being a bit of a geek, but do you feel you missed a trick by not calling it a herd or something else cow-related? The cattle, the team? Because I'd love to see that running theme throughout what you guys are doing. And while I appreciate the word buddy in terms of this, it would have been fun to have just kept that theme going through. And that's just my geekiness coming in. I know it sounds probably a little picky, but I just thought I'd ask your thoughts on that.
To be honest, if we'd have had this conversation 8 months ago, it probably would have been the herd.
Right. It could be changed at any point, can't it, I suppose?
It absolutely can. And again, that's just a naming convention. So
right.
That's
but the herd trademarked by the Mad Hatter sounds acceptable to me. So if you wanted to put
what I do want to also specify with this whole buddy system that's currently in place, it only goes one level deep. So it's not like other projects where you can you get benefits on the person you brought in, and then you get benefits from what they brought in 15 levels deep. This is only one level deep.
Okay. So it isn't designed to create an infinite loop of rewards for people that just want to keep getting people to sign up.
Correct.
Right. Understood. When are people going to be able to start playing some of these games of yours? That's going to be one of the things that they're going to be most excited about. Personally, I would be most excited about getting into a death battle with somebody over some rock, paper, scissors, or FIFA, perhaps. When am I going to be able to do that?
That's basically what we're going to be doing over the next 3 months, is building that out, building out the voting portal, the DAO aspect, but also formulating those games.
Right.
So, but the intent, right? Like on testnet, we can play these games, but the games for the month, your bullion tokens have to mean something, and your bullion tokens don't mean anything if there's not money coming back to the project.
Right. Right. So the next step that people are going to have in the evolution of questions is going to be when marketing, and what kind of marketing are you going to be doing? One of the things you did mention just now and at the top of the Q&A is that, new money coming in is something that you guys need at the moment. Obviously, you want investors. And in a minute, I will ask for you to give a brief synopsis as to why people should be investing right now. But what kind of marketing will you be doing? Where are you going to be focusing your marketing?
So right now, my marketing is the AMAs for the most part, and then I've hired another guy in the project that's more putting out content on your TikToks, your other social media platforms. The other part is currently I'm in talks with I guess it's one of those agencies that they promote Twitter ads, and then you kind of got to run through their system to do that. However, I've come to find out that there's a lot of people out there that just want to advertise for your project, but at the end of the day, they're awful.
Right.
But yeah, that's in the works, and that's something that's happening right now, and that's going to be a call I have tonight. Is more marketing and how do we get that ball rolling?
So then it comes down to the question I said I was going to ask, which is a lot of people sitting here are going to be wondering, why am I jumping in now? So get them excited. You've got 130 people here. They want to know why they should be buying an NFT. Give it to them straight. Why do you think as the project owner, they should be getting an NFT today that's going to be benefiting them, in a month or two down the line?
Okay, two reasons. One is, if I'm just talking about the alpha bulls, there's 100 of those bulls. And the true value, which I didn't mention in this AMA so far, is the alpha bulls are the only bulls that get royalty money coming back, like secondary market royalty money coming back. That's dispersed between alpha bulls only. Now, why that's important? Because there's only 100 of them. So once those are gone, they're gone. The other reason is on the regular bulls, they go off in 4 phases: phase 1, 2, 3, and then public. But the price is lower for phase 1. It's $150. For phase 2, it jumps to $160, $170, then $180.
Understood. And these alpha bulls right now, like you said, is the only time they're going to be able to get them. The bulls that you have right now are the alpha bulls. So that's what, 56 of the bronze, 25 of the silver, and only 8 of the gold. So, these things could go fast, right?
Yeah, and for example, like the gold ones, when those 10 are gone, they're gone.
Right. Okay. Is there anything that I haven't discussed that you wish I had? Is there anything that you wanted to kind of deep dive into? I've missed it, and you're wanting to kind of give me a slap through the screen for it?
Not really. The point I want to get across on this whole project is the only thing that matters on this project is building a portfolio that actually produces revenue for the project. And that's the beauty of where we're at now. And that's the beauty of the partnership with Alpha Shares.
Right. In which case, I only have a couple more questions for you. And they might not necessarily be on your project alone. It might feel a bit generic. Of the projects that are out there at the minute, you mentioned that you've had a bit of an experience with some projects that you didn't quite enjoy, that you didn't get on with. Which one are the ones at the moment that you admire? Are there any that you're taking inspiration from, or that you're closely looking at, that are going to potentially provide you with a good partnership?
Now, I will say there's, on the first part of that, there are so many projects right now that, like, they talk about rewards for the project, and the rewards for the project is having like a koozie with the logo or something, which, if you don't know what a koozie is, like a stupid sleeve for your beer. Like, if that's a reward for your project, first off, I don't want to be a part of that project. And the other part, and there's a lot of other projects that, like, it's just a community of shilling, and I don't even know what they do with their money. It makes no sense to me what they've done with the $1 million that they minted, and no one in the community knows either.
Right. So who are you looking at? Which projects are you, looking at and thinking, actually, those are the ones that I like, and those are the ones I'm really taking inspiration from?
The main project I'm taking inspiration from is ATS. So what Brando's doing with ATS.
Right. Okay. Any others?
Not really, because at the end of the day, no one's doing this kind of project. Like, no one's trying to make a project where it's not bring money in and play to earn with all the new money coming in and having like a sustainable revenue that's almost like an investment project that just has this gamification twist on it.
Mm-hmm. All right. Then let me ask, in terms of where you're headed, in terms of the future of the project, what you're doing, what are you most excited about? There must be a point that you're looking forward to getting to, and you see that as a milestone for yourself. Once you reach that milestone, you're going to say, right, I'm satisfied that I got here, and I'm going to give myself a little bit of a pat on the back. Perhaps have a cold beer or a whiskey before I start the grind again. What point is that for you?
That point for me is I'm going to be thrilled when phase 1 sells out. And I'm going to be thrilled when phase 2 sells out. I'm going to be thrilled when each phase sells out. The first month when we reward back, and then the intent of the project is, because we're leveraged heavily into what Alpha Shares is doing in Paraguay, like, that's also on the roadmap. Like, I hope everyone that gets into this project, like, let's go have a margarita in Paraguay in 18 months.
Right. Okay, so once that sells out, that's going to be a milestone for you. Great. I urge everybody to jump into your Discord. We're doing a giveaway now. Part of the giveaway is going to be that you have to have jumped into the Ranch Discord, and the winner will have to show that they've jumped into your Discord and prove that they're in. So everybody listening, if you do want to get that $100 and be eligible, you've got to jump into the Ranch Discord and have a look around and just talk. You know, you're always available to answer questions. There's people in there that are going to be answering questions. I'm excited to see what you have going on. You've got some really interesting stuff. Now that I've spoken to you, I'm more excited. I'd love to see some updates to the whitelist. It is a complex system that you've built, and with that comes the difficulties, of course, of translating complexity to an easily digestible, bite-sized piece of information. And I think you guys are missing a trick in some of the explanations that you've got going on with your games. In particular, the death battle. It's a really interesting aspect of what you've got going on, and I think you need to highlight it more personally. And I really look forward to seeing that update coming in and seeing how you guys progress in that respect. Similarly with videos, educational videos, I look forward to seeing your educational videos on this, even if they're bite-sized pieces of information that you release yourself on YouTube. I think it will go a long way for the audience to really understand what it is that you're doing, because a lot of what you're doing is unique. It's fun. It's designed to be fun. You mentioned yourself, you like competition, so this is designed to be competitive. But at the same time, you can also be passive. Although, like I said, if somebody's minting a $5,000 NFT, I don't think they're going to be passive for very long. I think you guys have got something good enough in the gamification that you're going to entice people in. So I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys do. I'm certainly looking forward to having you back at some point so that we can discuss your progress if you're game for being put back in the hot seat at some point.
Absolutely. And the only other thing I'll add to that is, again, because when you try to start a project, you get these founder-to-founder relationships. Right. I've come to find that there's a lot of projects out there, but for someone to be the face of the project and one of the main developers behind the project, those are a dime a dozen, I've come to find out. It seems like all the projects that I just despise for someone that has a cool idea and they hire every part of the project out.
Right.
And I just want everyone to know that wants to be a part of this project.
Oh, hello? You dropped out for a second. I don't know if it's just me having the audio issues, if someone can confirm in the chat, but I can't hear you. Okay, we'll give him a couple of minutes to come back. Just to let you know, Pepper, we can't hear you at the moment. The turtle came back and got him. I think what Pepper was... Oh, hello?
Yeah, my power just shut out at my house.
There we go. I was just saying, I hope the turtle hasn't come back to get you.
Let me see if I can turn
the ghost of the turtle is unplugging the power.
Can't do that. Yeah, anyway, so I cut out there. But all I was saying was, just in terms of like the value I'm trying to bring to a project, like I know everything that's going on. I know the code. Like I'm excited about what's going to get built for this project. And because I'm going to have my hands in a lot of it.
Right. Well, you trust your own work, right? The base of what you're trying to say is you trust your own work and you believe in what you create. And it's key for you that what you're creating is something you believe in and you truly believe has been built to the spec that you want. And that's what you're striving for. And that should give your investors a lot of strength when they want to come and invest in your product, because they know at the top of it is yourself, your KYC'd. You're not shying away from anything. You know, you're open to ideas, suggestions. You're prepared to pivot, as you demonstrated. And he's gone. He's prepared to pivot, as he demonstrated at the top of the Q&A. So we'll leave it there. But I urge everybody to jump into the Discord. If you have entered the giveaway, make sure you've jumped into the Discord and can prove that you're in there, and then you'll be eligible. Thank you guys for coming. I hope you take a bit of a closer look at this one, and I look forward to seeing you guys at the next Q&A.